Hey guys, and today I want to go over my Regenesis Kashtira deck profile and give you guys a quick introduction to the Regenesis archetype, which comes out in Aliance Insight for the TCG, I believe the first week of May, May 2nd, something like that. But anywho, yeah, let me get into it. So the Regenesis is a archetype based around the main deck, having main deck boss monsters. They don't really have any extra deck cards. So as you see, I'm mixing with Kashtira here, which is also kind of a main deck focused deck. So even though you do have the extra deck, you don't really use it that much, which is why I'm able to play like Pot of Extravagance. But in case you don't know what the Regenesis cards do, I'll explain them briefly. So you have a couple of main deck monsters. You have Regenesis Archfiend, which says you can special summon this card from your hand by revealing one other monster in your hand with 2500 attack or defense. And then if this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Regenesis card from your deck to your hand. And then it has a graveyard effect that says during your opponent's end phase, and this card was sent to the graveyard this turn, you can add it to your hand. And all of the main Regenesis monsters, so Regenesis Archfiend, Dragon, Warrior, and Sage, all have that last effect of being able to add stuff from the graveyard to the hand. So that means the deck has really good follow up because you can start your turn 3 off with having like 4 cards back in your hand, and at that point it's like, what is your opponent supposed to do, right? You have Regenesis Sage, which has a different summoning condition than the last one. It says if a monster with 2500 original attack or defense is on the field, you special summon this card from your hand, and then when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can send one other Regenesis card from your hand or face into the field to the graveyard. Negate the activation if you destroy that card, and then it has the last effect of being able to summon itself, add itself back from the graveyard to the hand. And then the next two Regenesis monsters also have the same summoning condition: Regenesis Dragon and Regenesis Warrior. If a monster Warrior, if a monster with 2500 original attack or defense is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then instead of negating an activation like Sage, you can tribute this card to target one monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand, so it basically bounces a monster, which is cool. And then Regenesis Dragon, instead of bouncing a monster, instead of negating a card, you can tribute it to target a spell and trap your opponent controls, banish it. So a little bit worse than the others, generically anyway. And then they have two spells, Regenesis and Taurogenesis. Regenesis says you can take one Regenesis monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Or if you control a Regenesis monster, you can add one monster with 2500 attack or defense from your deck to your hand instead. And then if this card is in your graveyard except turn it was sent there, you banish it and target one Regenesis monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So the card to give you pretty good follow up, and it's like a Rhoda, which is Rhodas are always nice. Is you have Tora Regenesis, which says it's a quick play spell. You special summon a Regenesis monster from your deck, but send it to the graveyard during your opponent's end phase. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck until the end of the next turn after this card resolves. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it to target one Regenesis monster that's banished, special summon it. So as you see, all these cards have graveyard effects. They all let you either summon from the graveyard or summon from banish or add back from graveyard. So the deck's follow up's actually really, really good. And that's pretty nice that Bistella was banned because Bistella was one of the hard to deal with cards, actually. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, why are we playing Regenesis with Kashtira? Well, if you didn't know, Regenesis or Kashtira Unicorn has 2500 attack. So that kind of fulfills some of the Regenesis conditions. It means you can reveal Unicorn hand to summon Archfiend, Demodar, and then if you have Unicorn in field, you can also summon the other Regenesis monsters as well. So they have pretty good synergy that way. As you see, both decks also don't really use the extra deck that much. You both really play with the main deck, so there's like cool synergy there. Even though you can use the extra deck though. You see, because I'm not really using the main deck like that, or the extra deck, sorry, I'm playing Pot of Extravagance in the deck because you don't really care that much what you banish, even though you do have some extra deck lines you can go into. And because this deck doesn't really care about the extra deck, the deck is really good into Fulos. The only cards that play into Fulos are Kashtira Theosis and Taurogenesis. Theosis, you can give them the one draw to summon a Fenrir, which you're fine with, and then Taurogenesis is a quick play spell. Often you can just save it for your opponent's turn, so you don't really like care about flawless like that, which is pretty nice. And the deck is also really solid into low level hand traps. Now, what is the deck trying to do? So it's not really a deck that utilizes extra deck much. It mostly utilizes the main deck. You're trying to set up some disruption. Not that doesn't necessarily need to FTK them, but enough to like stop your opponent's main plays, like a Unicorn, a Fenrir, a Birth, and then some of your Regenesis disruption, such as like Warrior, the Bouncing Monster, or Sage to negate a card. And then you see I'm playing about like 18, 17 non-engine cards, hand trap type cards to also back up my board. And then even if my opponent is able to set up a little bit of disruption, during their opponent's end phase, you will normally have like 3 Regenesis guys in the graveyard, so you can trigger all of those to add them back from your graveyard to your hand. So you're starting your turn off with like 3 extra cards in hand. You have a spell or 2 in the graveyard, which also have graveyard effects. So your follow up is just really hard to beat. So it's like a pseudo mid range kind of deck, and the deck has a really good grind game, which is nice, right? Some other synergies with this deck in the format. So like the Regenesis monsters read, if a monster with 2500 original attack or defense is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. A monster that has 2500 defense is Ryziel Detonator, which is actually really cool. So if your opponent has a Detonator on the field and you're going second, you can just special summon the Regenesis monsters from your hand. So that's really nice. It's like a meta relevant thing. And it says original attack too. So that means if your opponent has a dual drive on the field that's boosting a Detonator, that doesn't matter. You can still special summon your Regenesis monsters. And Regenesis Warrior actually outs the Detonator by itself because you can just tribute it to bounce Detonator. So that's really nice. As long as they don't have Twins of the Eclipse under it, and another XYZ, it'll be fine. And it's a searchable Detonator out, which is really nice because you can search it with Regenesis. And also special summon it with Tor Regenesis. So this deck actually does not have a bad time going second into Ryziel at all. That matchup is very, very fine. And yeah, as you see, the extra deck, it's just generic rank 7 utility cards. Dark Armed, Draco Sack, Big Eye, like Zeus Typhon. You can make IPSP, but you don't really make them that much. And then there's like Omega, in case you want to normal summon a Veiler, and make Omega to rip a card. Also, something to note is the spell new trap card, Dragon's Mind. Dragon's Mind reads, when a spell and trap card is activated or a monster effect is activated and you control a monster with 2500 original attack or defense, negate the activation if you destroy that card. And then if it's in your graveyard, you can pay 2500 life points, set this card with banishment, and leave the field. So the reason you actually side this card is because it's very easy for you to summon a monster that makes Dragon's Mind live. It's very, very easy. All the monsters in your deck do it pretty much. So even if your opponent has disruption, it's going to be live. That's really it makes it a better Solemn Judgment basically. And this deck doesn't really care about most hand traps, so you don't need to worry about going first cards like Call By or whatever instead. And Dragon's Mind kind of has synergy with like the deck's purpose. As I mentioned before, this deck wants to grind. Your turn 3 is really powerful. Now, if you add on top Dragon's Mind resetting itself turn 3, if you get to turn 3, you basically win the game. So Dragon's Mind has good synergy there, which is pretty nice for the deck. And then I'm playing one Warrior and one one Sage, because these cards, while they're not terrible to draw, you can special summon them if one of your guys is on board. They're really searchable and they don't get your play started. Meanwhile, Regenesis and Tora and Archfiend are your like Regenesis starters, so that's why I'm playing multiple of them. I'm only playing 2 Archfiend because the combo of Archfiend plus Unicorn is not that great. Because if your Unicorn is stopped, then the Archfiend actually can't summon itself. And if you summon Archfiend first, you can't special Unicorn. So you actually prefer to open a different Regenesis card, like the spell. Because if you have Unicorn plus the spell Regenesis, if Unicorn is stopped, then you can just search like your warrior, and you still have a disruption and follow up in that way. Whereas if it isn't stopped, then you can search the Archfiend. And then Tor Regenesis is really good because you can just straight up summon the Archfiend from deck. So Tor is the best Regenesis starter to open by far. I'm playing 7 Kashtira cards, 3 Unicorn, 2 Fender, and 2 Planet. The reason I'm not playing more is because you really don't want to open that many Kashtira cards. You really want to open only 1 Kashtira card. So I decided to play less Kashtira cards and more like pot cards. So 3 Extrav, 1 Prosperity, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you guys think the deck is cool and are going to try it out. And I'll post the deck download link in the description or in the comments. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, take care.